Am I the jerk for refusing a luxury purse from my mother-in-law? Mother-in-law? I, a 27-year-old female, refurbish purses, both luxury and sentimental, as a lucrative side hustle. Sometimes I also go to thrift stores to find purses that people have discarded and either sell them or give them as gifts. About 6 months ago, I found a black Latico leathers tote in great condition and decided to keep it for myself. I have a maximalist aesthetic, so I made it my own by periodically tying various scarves and beads around the handle. I love this bag, especially because it only cost me $8. My husband, a 28-year-old male, and I eat dinner at my mother-in-law's house quite often. She is the originator of the clean girl aesthetic. Everything in her house is very white and minimal. Her style is also this way, and she only wears neutrals. When I first visited with my new bag, she commented on how loud it was. From then on, every time we went to her house, she always made some sort of comment like, "You still carrying that thing around everywhere?" It got to the point that I started leaving it in the car. A month ago, we all went out to a nicer restaurant and I brought my bag in. My mother-in-law scoffed and said, "Please leave that ugly thing in the car. It's so embarrassing." This struck a nerve, and we had a little argument over it, which ended with her saying she was going to buy me another bag so she didn't have to look at mine anymore. In the moment, I didn't take her seriously and forgot the comment entirely. Last week, we went over for dinner at her house. She met us at the door with a huge smile, grabbed my arm, and rushed me to another room to show me something. There was a Kate Spade perfect large tote in a yellow beige color. She said, "Put it on. Don't you love it?" I realized she had bought this for me and said, "I really appreciate the gesture, but if you're going to get me a bag, it would be nice to go shopping together so that I can get something that is more my style." She told me it was final sale. When I suggested she should keep it for herself, she blew up and started calling me ungrateful. I told her I wasn't going to take something I wouldn't use, let alone didn't like, and she started crying. My husband and I left, and he told me I should have just taken the bag and used it when we went out with her. For me, something expensive like that should be used by someone who really likes it, and it's obvious she bought it to project herself onto me. Am I the asshole? You haven't done anything wrong. It's inappropriate for her to try to project her aesthetic preferences on you. This sounds more like her specifically trying to alter your preferences to something she finds more acceptable. You shouldn't have to do that, and you were right not to take it under these circumstances. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay for a second internet hookup? A little backstory. I, a 31-year-old male, have a roommate who is a 43-year-old female. We became friends in February 2023. She told me she was being bullied at work and couldn't take it anymore. So I agreed to help her financially for a small amount of time so she could quit her job and find something better. After quitting, she started telling me how bad her roommates were, and I helped her move to her friend's apartment one state over. That was good for about 2 weeks, and then she started telling me how awful that friend was and she needed to move back. I helped her move back and into a different friend's place. That lasted about 1 week. I was still supporting her financially during all of this. In February 2024, we finally got our apartment, and it was supposed to be a safe place for both of us. I paid the first and second month's rent, as well as the deposit and application fees, as she still didn't have a job. She set up the wifey under her name and managed to get some money to pay for it. At the end of March, she finally found a decent paying job. This is when things went south. She started being very short with me and a lot more passive-aggressive. When I tried to ask her what had changed, she got mad at me, saying I was being mean and awful. There have been several fights since. Most recently, she was pausing my devices on the Wi-Fi and refused to give me access to the account since it was under her name. I tried to ask about getting a new service that didn't have any personal information on it that we could both access, and she refused, saying she would be keeping the one she has and I could get a separate one. So I did. I set up the new modem with a splitter so we would both have access to the wall hookup. According to her, this has degraded her Wi-Fi, and she is demanding I pay for a second wall hookup to be installed and stop using her wall hookup. I told her we share in rent, so we share that hookup, and if she wants a separate hookup, she is more than welcome to get one, but I won't be paying for it. She said she had Wi-Fi first, so it's on me to fix this as my new modem is the issue. I in turn told her that she did not have Wi-Fi first, and that we had Wi-Fi, but I had to get a separate one because of her. There is so much more I can't fit here, but I will answer any and all questions. Am I the asshole for refusing to pay for this? You behaved properly. They are clearly unreasonable and petty in every way. Given their history, it will only get worse, so consider moving out. If everyone has a problem with them, they are definitely the problem. You were more than fair, but it's time to stop being a doormat and cut them loose. Am I the jerk for ordering before someone who was still shopping? We are in a fancy hotel. It was a splurge. I am a little out of my element, but trying to have an experience with my 3 children, 1 preschooler, 1 toddler, and 1 with special needs. We went to the little coffee shop store for breakfast. There were 2 people in line. 1 woman was ordering. Behind her was a woman and her daughter. Just as I joined the line, the woman told her daughter not to move from the line and walked to the fridges about 20 feet away. I was in a great mood. I had noticed that the woman who walked away had on a beautiful dress. If she hadn't left, I would have complimented her dress. I did have the 3 children who were pretty excited about the selection of snacks available at the counter, none of which I intended to purchase. The first woman completed her order, and the daughter of the woman with the pretty dress was now first in line. She looked uncomfortable. We waited maybe 20 seconds. The cashier began to shift around. The kids were restless. We waited maybe another 20 seconds before I kind of started to move up. The daughter had kind of shifted to the side and had tried several times to get her mom's attention. I asked, "Is it okay if I order?" The cashier deferred to the daughter, maybe age 10 to 12. I'm not sure what she said, but she ran to get her mom. I started to order. The entire order would have taken maybe a minute and a half. I ordered 3 cinnamon rolls, 1 goulash, and a bagel with cream cheese. In the middle of my order, the barista tried to give the pretty dress woman, who had now returned to the line, I want to say 20 to 30 seconds after I began my order, someone else's drinks. She said, "I haven't ordered yet." She butt in front of me. This was after I heard her barking at her daughter for leaving the line. I responded. I was mad. I didn't yell, but I felt I was being accused of doing something I didn't do and isn't in my character to do. I pointed out that she had still been shopping. She asked if I couldn't have waited a few seconds. I said it was longer than that and that everyone had been uncomfortable. She said I was being embarrassing and would I just go ahead and order. I said she should be embarrassed, and I was glad she felt embarrassed. The talented employee stepped in and saved the day by offering to take her at the other register. She got the last word and huffed, "Yes, thank you." I'm not sure that it bothered my children much, but it ruined my morning and probably her daughter's. If I had known it would devolve like that, I might have just waited for her to finish whatever she was doing. Your actions were justified. People often don't realize that letting someone go ahead in line doesn't really hurt anyone. Just ignoring her complaints and continuing with the day would have been the best move. She left the line, so the whole world can't just wait for her. Am I the jerk for pressuring my partner to stay the night? Background. My girlfriend, who's 27 years old, and I, who am 29 years old, have been together for 1.5 years, but we live an hour apart, so we usually meet once a week. We have a mutually agreed upon schedule and take turns driving to see each other every week. When I drive to her place, I do not stay over because she lives with roommates. When she drives over, she stays the weekend since I have my own place, and she is normally perfectly happy and willing to spend the night. Now the incident. This past weekend, my girlfriend drove over to my place on Saturday afternoon around 1 p.m. When she arrived, she told me that she wanted to drive back the same day and not stay over because it was supposed to rain the next day. For context, she is absolutely terrified of driving in the rain as well as after dark. This meant she would only be able to stay a few hours before needing to head back. We had both checked the forecast, which said the rain would start at noon on Sunday and would be light overall, maybe a few inches. I originally expected that she would at least spend the night and drive back the next morning, but she was afraid the forecast could be wrong, so while she would normally stay, she did not want to take that chance this time because of it. I was unhappy with her decision and told her so. I felt like her choice reflected on how she prioritized my importance and the quality time we managed to spend together versus any potential risks and her fears. We already only see each other once a week, and cutting short her visit would mean waiting another 2 weeks before the next time we could spend a weekend together. If the situation were reversed, I feel like I would absolutely have taken that chance for her. We argued quite a bit over this in a calm and respectful way. In the end, my girlfriend agreed to spend the night and drive back the next morning, on the condition that if the forecast was indeed wrong and it started raining early, I would drive her back myself, which I agreed to. While I was glad she decided to stay, I feel like I may have pressured her into staying and that she would feel resentful after this. Am I the asshole? You are the jerk here, OP, for using emotional blackmail to get your way, plain and simple. Instead of offering to drive her home the next day, you made this about you when it was about a valid safety concern. She knows her limitations as a driver, and if she says she's not able to drive safely in the rain, believe her. Next time, skip the guilt trip and just help her find a viable solution to her concerns. Am I the jerk for not pulling over to help someone in need? I feel like I'm going to pull my hair out over this, so I thought I would post here to see your thoughts. I live in a tiny Inupia town. Because I work remotely and live on the same property as my entire family, I sometimes like to go for drives around town to reset my brain. The other day, I was returning home from one of my drives when I saw a small crowd of people on the side of the road. I saw my Grandma Mary's car parked near the scene, so I started to roll to a stop to make sure she was okay. She was fine, but she was tending to one of the teenagers who lived on the nearby reservation. He had fallen off his bike and looked a bit dazed. Grandma Mary is a nurse practitioner. She has treated men who have been disemboweled by bears without a sweat, so I was sure she had it under control. Still, I rolled down my window and asked if she had everything she needed for the situation. She nodded and waved for me to move along. There were about 15 people there already, and I'm sure she had enough to worry about, so I didn't hesitate to obey. After this, I went to my mother's house to help them with work. I was in one of the offices when I heard the door of the parlor open and a male voice. I assumed it was one of the new security guards my grandfather hired until I began to hear my name. I stepped into the lobby and saw the uncle of the injured kid. I will call him Jay. He was pointing a finger at my mother, Aga. As soon as he saw me, he shook his head, looked me up and down and told me I was a stuck-up bitch. I could tell Aga was ready to pummel the man, so I quickly asked if everything was okay. I'm sure he was scared for his nephew, so I didn't want to write him off. Jay told me that I was a monster because I just rolled right by a kid in need. I asked him what I should have done. Grandma Mary was there and she had plenty of help. He didn't give me an answer. He just said that I was the only person who didn't stop and called me racist. I am half Inupiat and half white, so I am seen as less than by the entire town. So this was rich. Aga quickly stepped in and told Jay to leave. My family has been telling me not to worry about it. Grandma Mary came over after her work was done, and she seemed to be aware of Jay's sentiments before we told her about everything, but she didn't elaborate. She just rolled her eyes and assured me that she would have forced me to get back in the car if I did try to help. There were too many chiefs as it was. I guess I should feel better, but I still feel guilty. Should I have stopped? My family has owned and operated a cemetery and funeral home for centuries, and we live on the property with the funeral parlor attached to our house. When mentioning parlor in offices, that's what was being referred to, not a plantation. Also, Grammary and Pawpaw are just family nicknames and have nothing to do with any historical connotations. The security guards were simply hired to protect the property, not for any other reason. Am I the jerk for telling my dad, grandma, and my dad's wife that my mom never put me in the middle? They did? My parents divorced when I, a 16-year-old female, was 3 years old and my brother Shane, an 18-year-old male, was 5 years old. Shane remembers them fighting a lot back then. I remember none of it. What I do remember is my dad would always stay far away from my mom and would sometimes skip events if she was going to be present. He'd tell me or Shane or both of us that he didn't want to be friends with her, so he thought it would be easier to stay away. When I was 6, my dad met Kim. Within 4 months, Kim and her daughter Lila, now 13 years old, moved in with him. Within the next 3 years, my dad and Kim had my 2 half-siblings. They got married in between, and Kim moved her mom in to care for her until she died. So it was chaos. My dad also lost his job and made less at his new one. Shane and I were back and forth between my mom and dad. We'd spend a week with my mom and then a week with my dad. We hated going back then because it was so chaotic. My mom was the stable parent for us. She was able to afford to give us a good quality of life that my dad struggled to provide. My mom paid for an extracurricular activity for each of us. She made sure we always had enough supplies for school. She bought us nice gifts. We had game consoles at my mom's house and other stuff that we didn't have at my dad's house. Over time, as Lila and our half-siblings got a little bigger, my dad and Kim started asking my mom to send them money for us or to buy stuff for Lila and our half-siblings too. My mom refused. My dad and Kim hated that. They tried to say my mom was okay with us suffering, and my grandmother especially said my mom should be making sure we didn't feel bad because we had more. Shane and I never felt bad. We knew we had different things because our mom was our mom and Kim was our half-siblings and Lila's mom. So different families and different households too. I never felt guilty that we did so well with my mom. I never felt like she owed my half-siblings or Lila gifts, food, or clothes. My grandfather used to say him and my grandmother should do more since they were actually family and our mom wasn't, and I agree with that. I know Shane does too. A few months ago, my mom brought me and my 2 best friends to a concert. My dad knew I was going and he told Kim and Lila about it, knowing Lila had wanted to go as well, but they couldn't afford it. This became a really big deal. Lila got so mad at me for it, and my dad and Kim got mad at my mom because I didn't apologize to Lila. They said my mom put me in the middle of divorce stuff. A couple of days ago, they were talking about it with my grandmother, and all 3 said my mom made me feel bad by putting me and Shane in the middle and making us watch our other siblings suffer while we did so well. My grandfather called them crazy. I told them my mom never put me in the middle. They did. She never made me feel bad for having more because I never felt bad. I knew that comes with having different families. They told me to stop defending my mom. My grandfather told them to stop acting like Shane and I need to hate our mom because they do. Am I the asshole? You are not the jerk. It's great that your grandpa called them out. You live in 2 different households, and the expectations and offerings at each are going to be different. It's your mom's job to provide you with a loving, stable home, just as your dad needs to provide that for you and your other siblings. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.